Good morning. My name is John, and this is an introduction into my electrical system. This board here is all set to mount in the midsection of the trailer. Contains an inverter, a DC to DC charger, my solar power controller, and a transfer switch, plus some blocks, and the batteries will be right next to this or right in the same area. The system also consists of two sub-panels which are fused at switches, and the USB 12-volt control, a 12-volt outlet, and two AC outlets, which I need to do some work on, because when they come, they don't have any ground connection, and if they have a ground here, they got to have a ground connection. So that's just a matter of a little jumper and running a wire for it, of course. And then I have a Progressive Dynamics main distribution panel, and we'll go over that in a little more detail in just a bit. So let's get started now. Let's start here. Right here, this is our charge controller. That comes over to here, connects here and here, and these are just a duplicate of my battery terminal. I am running a monitor and a shunt, so the other thing, there'll be connections from here and here going over, one to the shunt on the negative side and one to the positive of the battery. And that is simple there. That connection has to be made first on a charge controller. Then the charge controller set up for the right type of batteries, and the type I'm using are lithium ion. So they're probably the best battery to use if you can afford them at the time. It's a big expense getting into them, but in the long run, they're guaranteed 10 years, and they'll last probably 15 or 20 or more in a Teardrop. They're no gas off. They can be mounted in any position. And you get twice as much electricity out of a battery. They can be completely drained without hurting the battery at all. So it's pretty simple. Let's stay on the DC side for a little bit. Over here is a 40 amp Renogy battery charger. And 40 amps, I'm on the edge doing that because I have number 8s running from, the car back, but inside the vehicle, I don't know what size they are, but they're probably 10s, but that's okay. They're going to go in here. This is the input side. I haven't, after this is installed in the trailer, I can bring the wires over here and attach them. And the output comes over here and goes directly to the battery. This particular one has some little switches. You set those switches up for lithium ion. You got to set them up for the type of battery you're going to do, your maximum charge, minimum charge, that type of stuff. Now, this big boy is a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. So if you're going to run a computer or anything like that, you want a pure sine wave inverter. 2000 watts is a lot, okay? If you don't plan on running like a microwave or something like that, a microwave's going to draw a little bit over 1,000. And I thought I might stick a microwave in my rig, just because I can, basically. And it could be convenient at times. And I might run a coffee pot, which also draws quite a bit. And but it's pretty simple. On this side is the output, and there's also a switch to set it up for a remote. And so back in the galley, I'm going to have a switch to turn this on. You don't want to leave these on They're not super efficient. This one happens to be 90 plus efficient. So if you put in 100 watts, you're going to get out, 90. You have some losses, so you're better off running things on DC that you can run on DC. But this should idle. It should never be taxed. It's actually capable of 4,000 watts for a short period of time. Anyway, I have a cable here coming over, big AC cable, comes over here to this box. And in this box is a transfer switch. And I'll explain that in just a bit. Now, the output of this, or the input actually, has two cables that come with it. They're 2 number 4s, and these go directly to your positive on the battery, and in my case, to the shunt of the battery. And the shunt is for a lithium-ion type monitor, which will monitor the battery, tell me how much I have left, and a bunch of stuff that the Bluetooth app or this panel here on this charger won't do. So you're just trying to take care of things so I know what's going on with my batteries at all times. And if I'm out for a week or something, I might say, I better not run the microwave today, that type of thing. So, and these go directly. Let me put these kind of out of our way now. Let's talk about the transfer switch. Right here, this green wire goes right on over and grounds the case of the sine wave inverter, and it's ground fault protected, and it's going to need a ground to reference from. This also has a little ground bus in it. You can't see it very well in the camera, but it does. And that ground bus is going to go to my chassis ground. Pardon me. That will go to the chassis ground. Oh. Transfer switch. It has a common that's always connected to something, and we have the 2 contact, normally open and normally closed. Here is my common. This feed right here goes over to feed my distribution panel. Simple as that. The normally closed contact, comes from my inverter over to it. So when I'm sitting normal without power attached to anything, I can turn the inverter on, it will run. Now, if I go to a trailer park, which I seldom do, but I made the provision anyway, because it's not a very big thing to do, the power from that will come over here to the normally open contact. And that normally open contact is actually also connected to the coil of this switch, this relay. And that will close the relay and put me onto power from the shore. The only other problem you have is in this panel right here is an inverter made for lithium ion. When you buy one of these distribution panels, you want to get one that's made to run whatever type of battery you have. So in order to get this to work right, instead of hooking this, normally this would be hooked up right here on a breaker. And this is basically an inverter. You take these wires off, and you'll bring them over to your transfer switch. Now, at the transfer switch, you hook them together with the shore power. So when there's no shore power, this inverter isn't running, but my charge controller is, or if I'm driving down the road, this is running and charging. Pretty simple way to do things. In this also, you know, I'm going to bring my AC. It's going to come over here. My swinger or my common comes over here and connects to my main breaker. I have a 30 amp because I'm going to put a 30 amp plug on the outside. I got caught one time with the place where they had no 110, just 30 amp, and which was okay. I had an adapter, but you know what the heck. You may as well put a 30 amp plug on if you're doing it. It's not too much more. So that's there. And now also the other hookup from here and here, okay, that comes over here, right here, positive here, negative here. That's your battery hookup. Now there's a little jumper in here, and you can take that jumper out and run a switch in between these two to turn off your main DC power. I'm going to do it a little different because my switch is going to be close to here, and so I'm going to leave my jumper, and my switch will, my power coming off of here and here will go on up, and just above this is going to be the switch, and accessible from the galley. And so click the switch, and there's no reason to run wire clear back and forth. You just get losses. Next is this small panel here, and I kind of like this. It orientates like this. It's got the 12 volt, and it's got a couple of USBs. Okay, boy, they're 5 volt, 2.1 amps, so they'll quick charge. Okay, and it's got 5 switches. All of these switches have fuses on them, which I like because I can change the fuses for the proper size for whatever I'm doing. You know, if I have a light that draws less than an amp, I may want to put only an amp fuse there, or a 2 amp fuse or something like that. Just a little bit above whatever I'm using draws. And these, I'll be marking these so I know which is which. The AC, I don't like it coming in with I'd rather see black and white for it, but that's okay. And you got one positive feed that's distributed to all the switches, and one common negative, which everything has to connect to. So probably what's going to happen is this will fold out of the panel, and inside I'm going to have a block with the jumpers on one side and then places to connect all my negatives from these 5 switches here. So anyway, that is the electrical system in essence. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I did this panel because it's mounting interior, and it will be much easier to mount it before the walls go up. Although, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to mount it here before I put the walls. There is room to take it in and out. It'd just be easier. I have to snake, there's a couple of holes here I have to snake my plumbing for my water tanks through. But other than that, it should be a simple little install. So any questions on this, please let me know. I'd be glad to help anybody. And I hope I made this system fairly clear to everybody. It's very straightforward in my mind, and the panel, not a problem. I've got a lot of electrical experience, and so it's pretty easy for me to do this stuff. Thanks for watching, and we'll have another video out after this one in not too long. Bye-bye.